Welcome to video 3. We've had video 1 and 2. Make sure you go back and view those because they've been really popular. We've had tens of thousands of views and thousands of comments, and we've really enjoyed looking at your comments, and I've enjoyed answering as many as I can. Now, video 1 was all about the opportunity and what you can achieve with permaculture. Video 2 was a property checklist and how you can apply design. Now we're going to move forward into actually what you do from there and how you can take any property forward from any situation into absolute abundance. We've had a good look at rural. Now, let's have a look at urban, because urban is an interesting situation. This is where we can apply design intensity. Here we are in inner city Melbourne, southern Victoria, a classic Mediterranean climate. And I'm going to take you into a most unusual scene. The front of this house here doesn't look anything different to the rest of the street. There's nothing really special about this. You would never realise what's actually on the inside. It's really worth having a good close look at this, because this is something you need to understand is possible. Okay, well, this is Angelo's place. Angelo's a student of mine, and this is the first time I've been to his garden, and we're going to see what he's done here. He's revolutionised urban permaculture food forests in a small micro space.
Jeff.
Long time no see, eh?
Pleased to meet you. It's been ages.
Yeah. Well, you've certainly done a lot of stuff here, eh?
Oh, it's been an interesting project. It's taken a few years, but we've built this from the ground up.
About 4 years, nearly, yeah?
Exactly. That's how long I did my PDC, and it's all come on quite good.
Well, it's got quite a reputation, so I'm really looking forward to getting you to show us around and see what's exactly here. I mean, there's a lot here, and there's a lot of production records as well, so it's going to be exciting. A lot of people don't realise this is possible, and they need to know. So what Angelo's done here is something quite unusual, and it's very effective. We've low pruned all the fruit trees. We've sort of micromanaged the space so everything's nice and tight, and they're sort of controlling each other. You don't get a lot of pest problems this way with the birds because you're close to the canopy. They feel kind of threatened by the few domestic animals that are around, and the gardeners are close. And then we've got this really intense diversity of almost like a food forest. It is an urban food forest sort of assembly, and it's self-seeding and self-replicating, and it's heavily stacked in perennials. It's enormously diverse and incredibly fertile in the soil. So that's something that a lot of people don't realise is possible. We've got the records, we've got the production numbers on this.
Now, one of the great tips that I've realised with keeping a whole backyard food forest really low is you eliminate a lot of the pest problems. We have possums here, we have fruit bats, we have birds. Now, the catch is when you keep a tree as high as you can literally prune it, nothing is going to go that low. It's too risky for animals to go that low. And so what they do, rather than sit there and eat my fruit, they will go to a neighbour's tree, like such as the huge one over there. And what happens is that the birds and fruit bats and possums will go there and strip their trees of food, but they won't come to my backyard. So it saves me also with all the pest measures, so it works really well.
You've just got to realise how small this place is and how many species there are that are of value. So give us a bit of a tour, Angelo.
Okay, well, it's only a small 60 square metre garden. That's all the growing space I have. And there's about 30 fruit trees right in this garden, about 22 types of berries, about 80 medicinal herbs, and a fair bit of annual veggies too.
Right. Okay. And you're getting a large amount of your produce out of here. How much food do you think you get out?
Okay, well, I've actually been counting all the produce, and I normally get about 70 kilos of veggies a year. And just this year, I got about 161 kilos of fruit. That's since 4th year. And we managed to get 11 kilos of berries. And we still should get double that in terms of berries, because most of the berries just got planted only last year, so they're not old enough to fruit.
So you're still increasing diversity, and you're still getting more fertility and more stability all the time.
Yeah, that's right.
This is 60 square metres, 640 square feet, and there's an enormous amount of production going on here. People just don't realise what's possible in the micro space. This is where we get most production in the area of size. How did you come across this system? Like, what was the inspiration that you wanted to achieve here?
Well, ultimately, I wanted to be able to squeeze in as many fruit trees as possible into my backyard, and the whole point of the design was that I can get extended cropping. Rather than having one big apple that produces all its apples all at once, and then I've got a glut of them, I thought I can get extended cropping by planting an early, mid and late season apple. Now, the catch with that is I'd need the space to put 3 big trees, but I don't have that much space. So what I've done in this little 5-metre strip, I've managed to squeeze 4 trees in. So this is just on a regular rootstock. This is a full-size apple tree. So what I've done, I've planted them very close. They're only about 1.5 metres apart from each of the other trees. And so they all actually compete with each other for nutrient and water and slow each other down. And we don't go crazy with nitrogen fertiliser, so I don't get heaps of vertical growth. And the other thing, the key to all of this is really the pruning. We prune not only once, the usual winter prune, but we do a 3 times a year prune. Whenever we get, this is all hard and woody now, but whenever we get the green growth, we take all the woody, we take the green growth down by half. So we leave the woody growth and we take all the green growth down by half. So we trim half of the new growth in spring, then we trim half of the new growth in summer, and then we do our normal autumn prune. So that helps the tree get bushier and gives it more form and shape, gives it more branches, and we keep it low. I never prune any higher. Sorry, I never let it grow any taller than what I can reach with secateurs above my head.
And you're a bit shorter than me too.
Yeah, that's right. So you can have your trees a bit taller. But and these are still yet to have their summer prune. I've left them a little bit longer just so they can store more energy into their roots.
And everything goes to the ground. It's chop and drop total.
Yep, everything. All the leaves from these will go down there. All the berries that I prune, they all go into there. Everything goes back into the garden.
And there's nothing wrong with the soil. From what I can see, the soil's magnificent. And you're returning diseased leaves and fungus. Everything just sorts itself out. Good organisms win all the time.
That's right.
So it's a self-replicating fertility system. It's just keeping fertility cycling.
That's right. If you've got a good, healthy soil ecology, it all takes care of itself, just like a good, healthy tummy.
We've just got to trust these systems, and this is an endorsement that these systems work. I mean, it's a very small area with an enormous production.
One of the reasons why I like to chop things really, really fine is because they break down much quicker and they create nice, rich soil much, much faster. And here what we'll do is we scatter the seeds first. This is all lettuce. So this lettuce will produce our lettuce for next year. So we'll grab that, throw some more over there, spread it out, take that out. Served its purpose. I normally fold them because I can cut it twice as fast. If your hands are strong enough, you can fold it again. So that's 4 layers there. And then I can just do it really quick. One of the other wonders about growing plants in a permaculture way is that you can actually benefit from combining plants together. Now, this mandarin tree above me is a really heavy producer. It produces about 64 kilos a year of mandarins, which is a lot, so you really need to get a lot of food into it. Now, one way I've found out to actually feed it naturally is to grow comfrey, which is this broadleaf plant. And I'll just pull out a leaf for you. That's comfrey. That's what comfrey looks like. What comfrey does, it has a very deep taproot and it drills deep down into the soil. It can pull up nutrients. It does what you call nutrient mining. Now, citrus has a very shallow root, so they're not competing root-wise, and what happens is when all the nutrient goes past the citrus roots, the comfrey can pull it all up, and then when it dies down in autumn, it releases it and it feeds the citrus tree. So one thing I would like to explain here is just the whole concept of solar aspect. In good permaculture design, we line up our plants so they make best use of the sun. Here, the trellis runs in a north-south direction. Being southern hemisphere, we have our north midday sun shining down the length of the trellis, so it receives the full sun right through the day. So it's not shading anything out, and it benefits from the full sun that it's receiving. Now, when the sun swings around to the west, we get a real harsh west sun. Now, this acts as a big screen and shades out the veggie patch behind it, so the vegetables behind it don't get toasted. And the other benefit is that when this loses its leaves in autumn, they all drop down and it mulches the garden below it. So essentially what we've demonstrated is that one element in a permaculture design serves many purposes. And in this case, it's actually three, but also the fourth is that it produces grapes.
I mean, what's your background on understanding this? Is it something that is very relevant to you?
Oh, I come from quite a different background actually. My background's in biomedical science of all things. I'm a biochemist and a pharmacologist by background. So I sort of really understand how things work on a deep cellular level and also what effects things have on our health. And one thing I realised through growing my own food is just really the health benefits, but also made me acutely aware of all the dangers of a lot of commercially grown food, just the toxicity present in the food. When I learnt about what effects a lot of the pesticides have on the human body, I was quite daunted thinking, do we actually really use this on something that we eat? And when I sort of considered it, I thought, okay, this is a really good argument for growing one's own food, because when you grow your own food, you know exactly what goes into it, you know exactly what you're going to be eating and putting into your own body. And so I've been able to take that understanding to drive my intent on creating a healthier lifestyle.
So this has definitely got a lot of nutrient-dense food and mineral-rich food. There must be enormous diversity of minerals here in this food.
It's just so diverse. It's unbelievable. You're eating something different every day. One thing I learnt about with nutrient density is when things are grown commercially, the whole point is to get it as big and as visually appealing as possible. But the nutrient density has gone down in the last few decades, so there's no point eating food that tastes awful and just looks good on a supermarket shelf and it's nice and shiny. What you're really doing is you're just cheating yourself. So I guess one action that people can take is to make the decision to put really mineral-rich, nutrient-dense food into their bodies, and that's the best thing you can do for yourself. The great thing with having diversity in your backyard is manifold. You end up creating a garden which is lush all year round. That's the first thing. So you don't have this whole thing that dies down in winter like most people's veggie patches. The other thing is that you can have produce consistently right through the year. When you have early, mid and late season fruit trees, you end up getting fruit for months, and it works with all the other produce too. And the third thing is all the plants work together, they create a living ecosystem. That's probably the most important thing with diversity. Once the difference between creating a garden and creating a living ecosystem is having the diversity there and having all these things working together. Once they work together, it creates such a self-supporting natural system that all the natural pest controls will come in, natural weed controls. You do so little because nature does it all for you.
We'll see you again, eh?
Thanks, it was great having you here. Thanks, pleasure.
Mate.
Okay,
right.
see you soon.
Thanks, mate. Well, that's a classic example of what you can do. The potential of small space is the most productive in area. because you're in such close attention. This can happen in any climate, in any suburb. This is the inner zone of a larger design. If you're on large property, this is what your home garden can look like if you get design right, if you understand the potential of that concentrated design action. Any climate, this is what you need to understand. The potential is there in the suburbs and the larger properties. It's proof we can do this and we can be design crisis secure. In the small space urban environment, in the cold climate, you really need a good sun aspect. Your glass house often is a microclimate that heats the house. Your water tank often needs to be underground. You have to think about that sun trap orientation. As we go into the tropical and the hot climates of the desert, we're looking at shade features to cool the house down. We're looking at shading the high tropical sun. We don't want thermal mass in the tropics and the desert to be heating the house up. We do in the cold climate. You've got to look at what the potential is in those micro, smaller spaces, realizing that the ultimate productivity is in the small spaces. The productivity per square meter is highest in the smallest of space. This little space is just a wonderland of permaculture diversity. There's probably the highest density of plant stacking we've seen on any location. This is really urban permaculture in its most extreme expression.
I'd like to show you how my pipe pot stand works. Here we have a system of 3 PVC pipes, and they're half filled with water. And these pots sit in the PVC pipes, and they have this stuff, which is weed matting, which goes into the water and up into the pot. So each pot can get as much water as it needs. And I've drilled a hole about halfway down, so if the water goes up too high, any excess will come out of this hole. So the pots don't actually sit in the water, and I don't have to water 27 pots. This aspect where you're looking now, this faces southwest, which is like the worst possible permaculture aspect. So what I have to do is utilise what I can. I've done a lot of vertical plantings. So I've got the pipe pot stand here, I've got hanging baskets, I've created trellises and I put vines over there, I've got arches, so everything's lifted up, and that helps get the sun, and it also helps with space as well.
Design in your water tanks, design in your fresh water. You have hard surfaces, collect the roof water. If you're in flat roofed areas like deserts or industrial urban or inner city urban, look for those flat roof areas because you can put roof gardens up. There's all sorts of options, enormous amounts of vertical space that can be most intensely utilised in the urban area. Trellises for extra shade. Now you can also play with deciduous elements where you shade in summer and open up to sun in winter. There's micro intensity in urban situation. Don't be fazed by the fact that you're in the suburbs or you're in the industrial area or you're in the intense, very, very dense population areas, because these areas have more opportunities per square metre. And this footpath is deep mulched on top of newspaper, so that nothing's going to grow in here. It's just a functional footpath access way, but it's perfectly on contour, so it harvests water and soaks it passively to the lower beds.
So I did an introduction course into permaculture and had a look at how I could slow water down, how I could actually use it myself rather than it running from this end of the property straight out to my neighbours. So the garden beds have been designed along paths that are on contour, so as the water enters the property, it slows it down, it spills over into the vegetable beds and waters the vegetables for me.
And does it do that?
It does. It does. It absolutely does.
The back garden Here we have an overflow from the grey water of the house, comes through a little sloping reed bed into an aerating pond right behind me. The overflow comes through the swale I'm sitting in and down almost the full length of the garden, soaks through the swale mound, and any overflow from that gets caught in the next swale further down, which in the future there's a chicken pen planned to add extra nutrient to the system. So this is a well-designed water-wise garden, front and back, full of food. It's just a matter of realising. Now, design is the key. Understanding design of urban. The intense micro space is where you learn most if you want to extend out, but you can stay urban and be completely secure because there is more opportunity. And as more people work together with that opportunity, the more secure you are as a sustainable community in its own integrity. I'd like to tell you a story about two of my students and clients who became good friends of mine because they needed advice on a lifestyle change. He was a Navy diver and he'd had some serious health issues in relation to chemical toxicity through a dive accident. And they needed to completely change their food intake and their lifestyle stress. So they cashed up out of the military service. She was in the army, he was in the Navy, and more or less semi-retired, and bought a small 7-acre property. And I helped them design and develop that property. Small dams, 1/4 acre of vegetable garden, an acre of food forest, 4 acres of pasture, and about an acre of woodlot, and a small area of wilderness next to a small seasonal creek. So they developed that property over time, and I'd regularly call in and see how they were going because they were serious about this. They really wanted to grow all their own food. They had 3 young boys going through school. They ended up going right through school and university and leaving home on their parents' self-sufficiency lifestyle, supporting all their needs. Well, halfway through their development phase, when the system was quite mature, it was starting to go through the 3 to 4 year stage, when things start to get quite stable in most climates. I called in one day and knocked on the door, bit of a slow answer, and realised curtains were all closed. They were actually watching the midday movie. So I had a bit of a joke that they were taking it a little bit too easy. And then they actually said to me, they felt guilty because they watched the midday movie every day. So after a bit of a joke and a laugh about that, we then started to say, well, how many hours do you actually do now the system's quite stable? This is a system with a 1/4 acre of vegetable garden, an acre of food forest, a few small animals, chickens, ducks, tractors and pigs now and again, just 1 dairy cow and a calf, small bit of pasture, little woodlot, providing all their needs more or less for themselves and 3 growing young boys. Turned out they were working an hour in the morning each and an hour in the afternoon each. Half an hour in the morning and half an hour in the evening at weekends. So 5 days a week, 2 hours a day each, and an hour a day, Saturday and Sunday. Total 12 hours work each a week for a full self-sufficiency lifestyle and a complete lifestyle change. Couldn't meet a happier, more contented, less stressed couple, and absolute health change, total vitality. This is what you can do for yourself with the system that we can give you. This is possible. Many of my clients and students who've had health issues end up in the same situation. Happy, healthy, and completely vital and feeling meaningful and engaged in a system that they love, a lifestyle they love, because they understand it, they know their direction, they feel secure, they feel confident, they know they're survivors, they know that they are going to be living in an abundant situation because they know how to design their own lifestyle. I'm excited about sharing my knowledge with you. Make a comment down below and I'll see you next Friday.
And we can tell the future generations we moved this forward and we started the new evolution of humanity. This is the future and the only future that's possible. Let's do it.